welcome back to irishracing.com here on Monday the 16th of June with a special edition form scan in association with Boyle Sports to preview Royal Ascot. We're going to have a look at all of the Group 1s across the 5 days of Ascot and give a few shouts in the handicaps and other races as well. And I'm delighted to be joined on this special episode by Stephen Harris and Johnny Ward. Stephen, how are you keeping?
Yeah, fine, thank you. I mean, it's a bit hot up here, I must admit. We were just saying, weren't we? It's going to be like 30 degrees at Ascot by Saturday, and those of us who are sort of staying, working from home in the office, it is sort of quite unpleasant. But I think it's going to be brilliant racing. They're chucking on loads of water, aren't they? 10 millimetres every night, I think they've already said, and it's good to firm to start it all off on Tuesday.
Yeah, they'll probably need it looking at the weather forecast. And Johnny, we've gotten a couple of days declarations through already, and what we've seen so far, it looks like cracking racing all the way through.
Yeah, like even I think a good example of Royal Ascot is just looking at the Wolferton, which is a nominal listed race, and you have the likes of Military Order taking on Ambiente Friendly, Check and Challenge. This is a listed race, and one of the absolute lower kind of races on the card on day one. It's really cracking stuff, and I don't know, is it fair to compare Cheltenham and Royal Ascot? I know we did it on our show a bit over the last year because you were at Royal Ascot and you were talking about your experience there, but I find in terms of the competitive nature of the race in Royal Ascot, every race seems to be compelling, particularly with so many Irish runners over there. For all that, Ireland won't have all of the winners or won't have most of the winners, it's great to see Irish trainers over there from various different parts of the country with realistic chances as well, and it's going to be a cracking week of racing.
Yeah, for sure. And just the competitive nature of it. I think everyone would love to have an Ascot winner, but it's similar to Cheltenham. It's a very hard thing to do. But as we said, we're going to start with the Group 1 races. And at the end of each day, we'll give a shout maybe to anything we see elsewhere. So we're going to start on the Tuesday, the 2:30, the Queen Anne Stakes, the first Group 1 of the meeting over the mile. And to start, as we hopefully go on, this looks like an absolute cracker. We've got a really top quality field in here. Headlined, I suppose, by Rosalien, who's the 5-2 market leader at the moment. We've got the first 4 home from the lock-in at Newbury and all taking on each other again. Stephen, this looks a cracker. I suppose Rosalien, to start off on him, winner at Ascot last year, missed the rest of the season after that, but looked in good enough health when he came back at Newbury last time, and he's the one the punters seem to want to be on.
Yeah, I mean, he was quite weak in the market, wasn't he, at Newbury in the lock-in? And I thought he probably shaped the best of the 4 of them. I think that race probably burst Dancing Gemini's bubble. He looked the sort of now horse on that day. He was fit and he'd won his previous 2 starts. He still ran a blinder, but I do think Rosalien might improve past them. And the fact he's done it at Ascot over this mile is a big plus. Richard Hannon's going well. He's had 4 winners in the last 14 days. The only thing I'll say is when I sort of did my tips for this, I've tipped up Rosalien. I think he was a great bet around 3-1. He's now about 9-4, and I could see him perhaps even being slightly shorter than that. So maybe some of the juice has gone out of the price. I suppose if you're a bookie, my old bookie friends, Emma, they used to, if you beat one line of form, you could beat all 4, couldn't you? If it turns out that the Lockinge isn't the key race, then if you're going to beat one of them, you might get the front 4 beat because they're all the front 4 in the betting again. So one down the bottom who I thought was overpriced, who's got plenty to find on ratings, is Docklands, who I've backed twice this season, and I think he should have won both starts. He definitely should have won at Epsom last time out. Kingscote got absolutely outridden by Moore on the day. He was an unlucky loser, and first time out he bumped into Sardinian Warrior, who reopposes here. Well, Sardinian Warrior is a 7-1 chance, and Docklands Express is 25. Docklands Express, I'm showing my age there. Docklands is 25 to 1. There's no way in the world he can be 3 times the price. They're the same horse. Docklands travelled all over Sardinian first time out, probably just needed the run and got out battled in the last 100 yards. So from a price point of view, I think I'm going to probably have a bit of a go each way on Docklands and save with the favourite.
Yeah, Docklands a real Ascot expert, isn't he? He ran a very good race in Epsom last time as well, but back at his favourite track, you'd imagine he does look a big price there, 25-1. Johnny, what do you think? Are you with or against that Lockinge form? As Stephen was saying, it's probably leading the market here, but there's other angles to look at as well.
There are other angles, yeah. Intriguing angles that you wouldn't expect in the race. And Karlsbacher is the angle that for me is really interesting because he was with Chad Brown. He's been supplemented to run in this race for his new owner. Now, he's 16 to 1 with Boyle Sports, and he's gone to the Yulong investment. So we would know that owner over in these parts, the Yulong colours. He's joined Kieran Maher, who's an Aussie-based trainer. But the bit of form that really interests me, Emma, is that when he was with Chad Brown, he was a very good horse, Chad Brown, but maybe his one of his lesser runs was in the Breeders' Cup Mile when Notable Speech was sent off 23 to 10, but Karlsbacher was sent off just bigger at threes. And now he's a much bigger price, despite the fact we last saw him winning seemingly pretty much as good as his best at Keeneland in April. And I mean, obviously, I'm not following US racing day in, day out, but he just looks a big enough price because I do feel the horses, the lock-inch form, like of the lock-inch runners at the prices, I'd probably be with Notable Speech, even though he was disappointed at this meeting last year. And he's been a bit in and out, I suppose, apart from his Guineas win. I thought he shaped quite well and he'd come on for the run, and he's a bigger price than Rosalian. But that Raider looks a really interesting runner. I mean, why would they have supplemented him? Why would he be coming over unless they thought he had a realistic chance? And on his form, he doesn't seem to be much off what looks a small bit of a muchness of a group of sort of milers in the division as it is. The Irish representation in the race, Diego Velasquez, I think is asking an awful lot of him to win this on his first run of the season. Not sure he'd be quite as effective on the good firm ground, but Karlsbacher was a fascinating runner for Kieran Maher, and I think if you're having for the first race of the festival, he's a lovely interest bet at around your fiver each way, because he shouldn't be the price he is based on his form, and for me the signs that they're sending him over in the first place.
Very good. So I'd say we're probably all agreeing maybe at the shorter price ones, Rosalian looks the one to take from that lock-in jam. I agree with both your comments there. I'd say he'll step forward an awful lot. And I think his Ascot form definitely has to come into consideration as well. Two-time winner at Ascot, Irish Guineas winner last year. He looked a really good trio. It was a pity we missed the rest of the season with him, but a couple of nice each-way shouts in there as well at bigger prices from Johnny and Stephen as well. But we'll move on to the next race we'll have a chat about on the day. The second Group 1, the 340, the 5 furlong King Charles III stand, previously known as the King's Stand, under a new name now. And the betting for this one, we've got last year's winner, Star Australian Race Mare Asphora, around 4 to 1. Believing's around 9 to 2 for the Coolmore team. Regional about 13 to 2, and 6 to 1 Night Raider. Johnny, I think Asphora would become the first ever international raider to win the same race twice at the Royal Meeting. It's obviously a big ask with all the travelling and things involved, but she looked very good doing it last year.
Yeah, she did look very good doing it last year. It was a fascinating race last year. My selection regional, he beat Everton bar Asphora. Big Evs was the favourite, was in third on that occasion, Believing in fourth. And as regional did very, very little wrong. It looks like, I mean, he's a 7-year-old at this stage, and you couldn't be confident about pretty much anything in this race. He's drawn 17, which should be okay as well. This should have been his prep. He was third to Believing the last day. But if he repeated the run of the race last year behind Asphora, he'd have a fighting chance at around about 6-7 to 1. Like, this is an absolute minefield. Some years you get like really, really strong kind of favourites in this race, the likes of Batash, who looked kind of outstanding in terms of the context of the remainder, but that's not the case here. Looking forward to seeing Buccaneer refer to running as well. He was very good when he beat Powerful Nation at Nace the last day. I like Powerful Nation as a horse. He boosted that form since he won the other day, and he's not without a chance as well, but for me it's a small stakes race. I just think regional, he's a very, very likeable sprinter, and you're kind of confident that he'll give his run, in which hopefully be enough to get into the frame. And I'm looking at Boylesworth paying 4 place, and that's a bit of a help, but it's a small stakes race for me.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. It's a bit of a cavalry charge. And I like the shout for Buccaneer 40 in there. I was a fan of him in his 2-year-old campaign. Obviously, maybe didn't fully show he the best of him last year. Went to stud then and didn't work out. But back on the track now, and he was very, very good winning the sprint at Naas last time. So I'd say he's a bit of a shout each way, 22 to 1. I'd be with you on that. But Stephen, what's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on the big sprint of the day?
Yeah, I agree with Johnny that it's a minefield. I mean, I've selected Asphora, but again, she was 7 to 1 earlier in the week. She's sort of 4 to 1, 9 to 2 now. I'd guess that's probably pretty much rock bottom, how short you'd want to take in a race like this. Believing's quite an interesting one. The heavy mob purchased this one, didn't they, off Highclere? Got a win out of her at Meydan. Pretty impressive. I don't tend to like horses coming back to Meydan. I think sometimes they bomb out altogether and it can take a toll. But it'll be interesting to see that one in the market as well, given who now owns it. Further down, American Affair, number one. Jim Goldie wouldn't be known for Royal Ascot winners, but this one is a real smooth traveller who Paul Mulrennan gets on really well with. And I think people might write this one off a bit because upped in class to the Temple at Haydock last time out, could only finish fifth, but watch that run back. American and Fair was, I wouldn't say he would have won, but he was very unlucky. He got stopped in his run at the wrong time, then had to be switched, and he basically didn't have a race. He'll be held up. They're going to go a real mad gallop, maybe each way with the extra places with Boyles. You'd have a good look at American Affair, but it looks a race for small stakes.
Yeah, a couple of maybe small stakes each way. Sheds Believing is interesting. She's in foal to Frankel, I think, isn't it? So maybe that might bring out a bit of improvement in her as well. Really consistent performer at this level, I suppose. 9-2, maybe a little bit skinny for me though in a race like this. I'd prefer to have maybe a small bet at something at a bigger price because you just don't know what's going to happen in these big field sprints. But we'll move on to the last Group 1 on the Tuesday, the 4:20, the St. James's Palace Stakes, Group 1 over the mile. And this looks a showdown. We've got 3 Guineas winners in here, all showing off with each other. Ruling Court obviously won the 2,000 Guineas Newmarket, beating Field of Gold, who came out and put in an emphatic victory to win at the Curragh. Henri Matisse, then for the Coolmore team, was obviously a very good winner of the French Guineas as well. They're heading 4-5, Field of Gold, a big ride on the first day of Ascot for Colin Keane in his new job. Ruling Court's around about 3-1, and Henri Matisse 7-2. According to the betting, anyway, it seems to be between these 3. It would be a bit of a shock to see any of the bigger price ones get involved here. I would think, Stephen. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the best races of the whole week. These front 3. I mean, Field of Gold, I thought probably should have won the Guineas against Ruling Court. I know some people said, it was wrong to blame the jockey. I think he ended up getting the sack after that, didn't he? Colin Keane was on last time in Ireland. He absolutely bolted up. He was really impressive, Field of Gold. Ruling Court, they obviously took him to Epsom and then didn't run because of the overwatered ground. Good to soft by the time the Derby was run, or slightly worse, according to plenty of jockeys. So he's been to Epsom and not had a run. And Henri Matisse just keeps winning. And Henri Matisse has run on firm ground at Delmar before and overcame all sorts of problems to come through and win there. So it's a fascinating race. I mean, it looks sort of evens 3-1 and 4-1 and sort of 50-1 bar the front 3, doesn't it, to 100%? I think Field of Gold will take an awful lot of beating, I must admit. I think he's got plenty of class. I think there's more to come. He's straightforward. He's got a real turn of foot, and he's going forwards now for the Gosdens. The Gosdens are absolutely flying, by the way, coming into Ascot, which sometimes these big yards you do get overlooked. They've had 7 winners in the last 14 days, 24% strike rate, which is pretty impressive at the best of times.
Yeah, it'd be great to see Colin Keane get a big one on the board as well early on. Johnny, what are you thinking? Are you going to take on this favourite, or are you afraid of Field of Gold?
I actually slightly disagree or strongly disagree with Steve here. The odds for this race are based pretty much on the entire premise as we see here, the 4-5 Field of Gold. They're based on the premise that Kieran Schumacher was utterly at fault for Field of Gold's defeat at Newmarket. And it was the narrative of the start of the flat season that race itself either was the straw that broke the camel's back or was a big stick that broke the camel's back, because that was obviously the end of his job, and then Colin Keane gets the job, and Colin Keane has ridden Field of Gold at the Curragh when I thought he gave the horse the sort of ride you give a horse that you thought was practically unbeatable, and he won the race. But the likes of Officer was disappointing. I don't think the Curragh form matches up to Newmarket, so he has to go on and take on Ruling Court again. Ruling Court was bought for 2 million or whatever as a breezer because he had shown so much pace for a son of Justify. He'd obviously very good 2-year-old form tying in with the line in winter at York, and then he won the Guineas, and he was quite well fancied in the Guineas. There was that doubt over what William Buick was going to ride on the day, but I've watched that race back, and as much as I'd like to see them run against each other again, and I'm going to see that happen on Tuesday, I'm still not absolutely convinced that the wrong horse won the race on the day. And if you're telling me, I'm not saying this is a match, but in what could be a 2-horse race, or certainly a 3-horse or less race for me. You're getting 3-1 about a horse who's open to more progress. Like he's a horse who, as I say, by Justify, was very precocious as a 2-year-old. He was brilliant in the Guineas. He was absolutely brilliant in the Guineas. I can't see why there's this difference in price, because for me, I don't think Field of Gold necessarily improved at the Curragh. I just think he ran his race, and Ruling Court to me is probably the bet of Tuesday at 3-1. I don't see why he's been dismissed relative to the favourite when he was quite well fancied as it was at Newmarket, and he was holding them all the way to the line.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you there, Johnny. Like it's entirely possible that Field of Gold might be the better horse, even on that Guinea's running at Newmarket. But I don't think the price. I don't think the price is right there. 3-1 Ruling Court. I don't think there's as much between them as the betting suggests. I would kind of tend to agree that maybe Ruling Court was probably just a better horse at Newmarket as well. So I take Ruling Court as well. I'm going to take on Field of Gold in that one. But we'll wrap up the first day of Ascot first. But lads, do you have anything else on day one to have mentioned to Johnny? I'll stick with you first if you have anything.
There loads of horses to mention. Keep an eye out for Fairbanks in the Copper House Stakes, the 6:10 for Bill Durkin and Gary Bannon. Great to see him go over there. I'm very interested in Aeronautic in that race, Emma. He was a bit disappointed at the Curragh the last day, but he was well fancied and he's stepping up in trip here. I actually think my nap apart on the rest of the card is reaching high, and it's not like bookmakers have missed him. He's 7-2 at Boyle Sports, albeit 6 places in the 5 o'clock, the Ascot Stakes. But he's extra Michael Stout. He's so many positives from the draw. With Ryan Moore booked by Willie Mullins, who I was at Downpatrick yesterday. He signed off for the winner there. I really like his chance. For all that the bookmakers haven't missed him, he looks a perfect type for the race. Poneros in as well. I have massive doubts about him getting the trip. But yeah, I'd Willie's horse in that, or his first string in that, for me looks really interesting. So to see the stars.
Brilliant. Stephen, anything else on day one?
Yeah, I did like a horse again. I'm just looking at the prices now. In the 6:10, French Master was around about 9-2 a couple of days ago. I think he has now shortened up, but hopefully he'll still be sort of around about the 4-1 mark. He's a very progressive horse. I think the Gosdens think he's going to be listed or Group 3, Group 2 stayer in time, maybe developing into a cup horse over the longer trips. He won at Goodwood last time out. They put pounds, shillings and pence on him. I think he ended up 5-4 favourite in an 8-runner race. He didn't have the track at all, and he still just about won. He was on and off on the wrong leg the whole way round, changing his action, and he just rallied to lead late on. He's gone up £4 for that, but I think he's still probably well ahead of the game, and a proper test on a fairer track like Ascot will definitely suit him. And I think he's got James Doyle replacing Rab Havlin in the saddle. There's more to come. He's only run 4 times on the turf. I think he'll be very hard to beat. Again, repeating myself, maybe the juice has been squeezed out of the prices a bit, but I still think he's an interesting runner.
Brilliant stuff. That kind of wraps up a brilliant first day. 3 Group 1s and some really, really interesting other races on the card as well. But we'll move on. We have a lot to get through. Wednesday, the 18th, the Group 1 on the card, the 420 Prince of Wales Stakes, 10 furlongs. Our favourite in here is Tattersall's Gold Cup winner, Los Angeles Irish Derby winner from last year. He's around about the 2-1 mark. Next in the betting, and Matt, who finished behind him at the Curragh last time. Map of Stars, a really interesting acquisition for Watnan Racing, 9-2, and Ombudsman around 11-2. See the Fire was actually supplemented for the race during the week as well, which adds another interesting element to it. She was brilliant winner in York last time. But Los Angeles, I suppose, to start off with, Stephen, I'll stick with you. He was very, very good winning the Tattersall's Gold Cup last time. To be honest, I kind of had him maybe pigeonholed as maybe a slow horse after, he's some of his last year, but he's coming out and he's putting on big performances over the 10 furlongs. Aidan was always kind of adamant that, he wasn't a 1.5 mile, 1.6 mile horse. And he seems to be proven right now. I think Los Angeles maybe even looks better as a 4-year-old.
Yeah, typical sort of Aidan as it's come back and improved model. I agree with you. Sort of pigeonholed is not quite good enough for these sort of races last season. I do think very fast grounds are concerned for Los Angeles. I don't think he's a horse with a blistering turn of foot, and he's certainly an extremely thin price now. And as you said with Anmat, the forms, they're closely tied in. Whether that form is the standout form, I don't know. I thought the one who was in was the French horse, Map of Stars. Francis Henry Graffard, 8 winners in the last fortnight, a 29% strike rate, so they're all absolutely flying. This one's won 5 from 7. And if you watch back that run at Longchamp in the Prix Gannet, Michael Barcelona, who's been jocked off this afternoon, I mean, he gave an awful lot to do, Map of Stars. Probably an overconfident ride from rear, and Sosi had escaped by the time he got going, got beaten neck. I think he should have won. I thought that Map of Stars might be favourite, to be honest, when I did the race. And I think this is one of those races each way. If you play each way, 4-1, 9-2 Map of Stars, I think it's a cracking bet. It's got a smart turn of foot. He'll get a patient ride. I didn't fancy the other one you mentioned who'd been supplemented, See the Fire. I thought that was that was one of those races at York. First of all, I don't like wide margin winners at York. It's just one of those places sometimes horses win by miles, and it's sort of impossible to explain. All the others look drunk 3 furlongs out in behind. And it was one of those races at York, See the Fire won, that there was only money for one horse. I mean, it was odds against in the morning, ended up 11-8 on putting on. It was a complete one horse book, and See the Fire came home alone. I'd be amazed if that was all that it seemed, to be honest. I don't think that one's good enough. So I think this is a good race to be a punter. I don't think there's that many runners. I think if you beat one of the front two, you'll beat both of them. And I think Map of Stars is sort of rock solid around 4-1 with Boyles.
Yeah, I thought he was an interesting runner as well. I heard James Doyle getting interviewed during the week, and he definitely fancied his chances. Obviously, Sosi came out and boosted that form when they met in the Gannet, winning the Prix d'Aspan next time. So a very interesting contender for Watton. And Johnny, what's your thoughts on this one?
I tend to agree with Steve. I think Los Angeles. I remember the first time I saw him in Ballydoyle. He's a very good looking horse, and he's a bit of a character about him as well. A bit of the kind of Monju in him. But he's very, very, very genuine horse. And I was interested after he won the Irish Derby that Aidan was sort of saying, no, he's not a ledger horse. He's been proven right because he's turned into a very, very good mile and 2 horse. I actually met John Murphy at Downpatrick yesterday, and I did get the impression that White Birch wasn't going to be declared, and that's the one aspect of the race. It's just with the way the weather is, it was probably likely to happen, and that was an interesting angle going into the race anti-post, because he was in the betting, but I didn't think he was going to run. As it is, we still have the 9 runners, so we have the 3 each way places. I feel Los Angeles on the ground is probably a little bit vulnerable. I'd agree with Steve. I think he's a little bit underpriced. He's going to be well off the bridle, let's say, coming into the straight anyway, and he'll find plenty, but he's probably there to take it. And I'm with Ombudsman, he's Godolphin's representative in the race. I think he has a bit more to offer, in the sense of he's quite lightly raced. He's absolutely effective on this ground, and comes into the race in the back of that one at Sandown, which I think he should come on from. And it's just like Steve said, you're looking for an each way angle in the race. I think it's hard to be really, really, I suppose, dogmatic about any of these at the prices, but my main take in the race is Los Angeles is a vulnerable favourite.
Okay, some varying opinions there on the Group 1 on the Wednesday, the Prince of Wales Stakes. That's the only Group 1 on the card, so we'll go straight to the other races. Stephen, I'll go to you first. Anything else in the card catch your eye?
Yeah, I've got 2 written down. In the 5 o'clock, I like Quirat from Rafe Beckett, who ran so well last time out in the Victoria Cup over 7. Definitely wants a mile now. Did try a mile last season. Very progressive. Has gone up £2. The only negative, not a negative, the only thing to bear in mind, they put blinkers on for the first time this afternoon, which is interesting. I don't mind that at all. I'm not one of those people who you swerve away from it, but it is something to bear in mind. And also, Rafe Beckett, 3 winners from his last 36 runners. That would be a concern. He's only at 8%. I'd say he was someone who was usually nudging 20% with his horses, so that might be a slight worry. But Quirat's 10-1 and got Colin Keane, of course, for the first time riding him, which is a plus. And the other one I liked was in the 6-10, a 2-year-old of E. Johnson Houghton called Hurricane, who I think's around about 14 or 16-1 with Boyles. He ran in the National Stakes last time out at Sandown, which is traditionally quite a strong race. And I think I wouldn't say he was unlucky, but the race developed away from him as it turned out, and he was poorly positioned. I thought he ran really well. You're up against, Johnny will know more about these, and you will as well, Emma, a lot of very exciting Irish horses in this race. But I think Havana Hurricane is probably the best of the English runners at the prices, and should give you a good run for your money.
Yeah, it looks ultra competitive, that Windsor Castle. But yeah, Havana Hurricane, a show for Stephen there. Johnny, anything else on the Wednesday?
Yeah, it's a big day for Billy Lee and Paddy Toomey, 3 horses in with chances. I'll give a couple of horses on the day. I think one horse that definitely interests me is Fozzie Stack has Cardiff by the Sea in the Queen Mary. Now, Cardiff by the Sea was actually second first time out. So you might think this is a bit optimistic, sending a filly who was beaten first time out, but she was beaten by Charles Darwin, who looked one of the most exciting horses to potentially go to Royal Ascot, which isn't the case now. But that race was quite notable. It was a 4-runner race, and Fresh Fade, who was third trained by Michael O'Callaghan, is definitely well regarded as well. And I just thought the fact that I suppose Fozzie started off, Fresh Fade was beaten at the stole, but he was second. He ran well and he's well regarded. And Cardiff by the Sea to finish a very, very clear second in the race was a hell of a run, taking on probably a bit of a freak of a horse. She's out of a dam who Priest of Paradise, who was a listed 5 furlongs winner for Fozzie Stack. So there's a nice bit of pace in the page, and 20-25 to 1 definitely interesting. The other runner I'm interested in is Tokenomics for David Marnan. David Marnan's horses are in good nick, and he does very well at Royal Ascot as well. Tokenomics is running in the Royal Hunt Cup, number 29, and David Marnan spoke about this race in mind for the horse in recent weeks, and he said he actually the last day he won, I thought he was valued for more than he won by, and everything seems to be in his favour really, and he's the sort of horse that probably is going to sneak in a little bit under the radar given the yards that he's taken on in the race. He should have a fighting each way chance. Well, he's a horse who seems to be progressing a little bit with experience, but a cracking day too as well.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned Paddy Toomey and Billy Lee have a big day. They have 3 runners in the card, and obviously One Luck and Rogue Legend are probably fairly well found in the market. But there's one, I think, in the Queen's Vase, Karmers. I think he's there around 7 or 8 to 1. Looks a decent price for a nice each way bet. He's very, very strong stayer. Won his maiden in Ballavobe over 1.5 miles first time, and went on to win a listed race over the same trip next time at Navan, backing up quickly a week later. In a race like this, it's like, for the trios to stay 1.6 miles, there isn't probably a whole lot of horses that will do it, and like he's pretty much a guaranteed stay over the trip. I think he's a pretty solid each way chance, and that he's good.
He was in hindsight one of the greatest bets ever at Ballinrobe. Like, he was taken on, the market was made by a Willie Mullins trained hurdler who's a decent hurdler, and you had a Paddy Toomey horse first time out at double figures who actually turned out to be very good. It was one of these bizarre instances where the market just got it all wrong.
Yeah, hindsight's a great thing, and Donald O'Connor had to be strong that day. He got him home well, but he's improving all the time, and I'd say he has a good shot now. It's a kind of a race that will suit him. So that's one on the day for me. But we'll go on to Thursday's cards, and the big race on the day, obviously on Thursday, is the Group 1 Gold Cup, the 420. Obviously, we'll be missing Kyprios this year, the old star of the division. But luckily, Aidan O'Brien has Illinois to hopefully fill that gap for them. I think he's going to slot in here. Jan Bruegel also in the betting for this, but I'd say just judging by quotes, it's probably fairly unlikely he's going to go there. He ran at Epsom. Obviously very good winning the Coronation there. So you'd imagine Illinois will be the first string and probably only string for Ballydoyle in this one. He's 11-8 favourite. Trollaman, very consistent performer in these types of races. Second in it last year. He's around 3 to 1. Candelarii is a very, very interesting runner, I think, for the Aga Khan, coming over from France, 7 to 2. Sweet Williams, 6 to 1. Jan Bruegel's 8 to 1 in the betting there. Unlikely runner, I would say. I suppose we'll start with the favourite, Illinois. Johnny, look, he's consistent. He won that Queen's Vase at Royal Ascot last year. He has the track form. He's fairly battle-hardened. He's probably the obvious successor to Kyprios for Ballydoyle, I suppose.
Yeah, but these stayers, and Aidan O'Brien does seem to find them when he needs to, be it like, Yates was the obvious one, and Kyprios in recent years, like, they're not they don't just happen. These are very unique horses. None of them is really bred for this sort of trip, and they just have, I suppose, a mixture of class, real will to win, and toughness that a lot of horses just don't have. And that's not to say Illinois is not going to be that horse, but I cannot get my head around the price that he is, because it's almost like this everyone has jumped to the conclusion that this is the new Kyprios. If Kyprios were in this race, like, Kyprios tended to go off at sort of backable prices, give or take around about the even money mark. Illinois is around 6 to 4, like, based on based on being a very good 3-year-old. It doesn't add up to me when you're taking on proven horses in the race. And as you say, Emma, we don't know what Ballydoyle will run, but it could be just Illinois representing them, and that would make the race obviously more of a bet as well if you wanted to back something else in the race. And the likes of Trawlerman and Sweet William, for me, I just think they're very, very solid, particularly Sweet William, who would probably maybe he'll need a little bit of luck on the day the way he's ridden, but like his runs behind Caprios have been rock solid throughout. He's a really, really solid stayer, hardly ever runs a bad race, usually misses the break. That's not really a problem. He warmed up for this behind Rebel Romance. He'll definitely come on for that run because this would have been his aim all along. And even if he ran the race he ran last year, you'd imagine he'd be in the first 3. Like, it's kind of weird the way the pricing is in this race, because these horses like Sweet William and Trawlerman, they don't have Kiprios to worry about now. So it's like as if the bookmakers are saying, well, they're not going to beat Illinois. I just think it's jumping to a conclusion to think that Illinois is going to be the next big thing when you just don't know with horses stepped up to 2.5 miles. A lot of his credentials suggest he will stay and all that. He's a very, very tough horse, has speed, has class and all of that, and stamina, but for me he's too short in the betting relative to everything else.
Yeah, I suppose there's probably two ways to look at it. Like, are you going for the up and coming 4-year-olds, or the solid older horses like the likes of Trawlerman, who they've been there, done that, loves the track? Stephen, what are you thinking? Are you going to stick with the old boys, or any of the 4-year-olds catching your eye? I suppose Illinois and Calendari are the big ones.
Well, I completely agree with what Johnny said, Tony. I think this is quite an interesting race to have a bet in now, to be honest, because Jan Bruegel, I would imagine, definitely won't run. Trushan will never run on firm ground ever, although they'll probably leave it till about 3:30 to decide that. So you're getting a race here where 3 places are 50 odds. The favourites are up 5 furlongs in trip. So from a place point of view, the each way terms are very favourable to the punter. I mean, I'm not saying I don't fancy Illinois. If the heavy mob want to be on, they'll probably know he's going to stay all right, because Aidan may well have worked him at home over this trip to find out. But as a punter from the outside looking in, you definitely don't know he'll stay. I mean, his Chester run's been franked by the second, hasn't it? Al Karim come out and won at the weekend quite impressively, to be fair. So that form's had a boost. But as Johnny said, there's no way in the world Illinois can be 6-4 on the face of things against proven stayers. Trawlerman, as far as I can see, will get another very soft lead that he got at Sandown when he landed the odds there. That was after you clawed to the race, wasn't it? At Sandown, where Buick was allowed to lead on his own, kick clear, and that was the end of that. And Trawlerman ran an absolute screamer from the front in this last year. And by the way, so did Sweet William, who got a very negative ride. I think it was first go over this trip in the Gold Cup last year. And Sweet William, I'm not sure they thought that he would stay, but he did. He just never landed a blow. He was too far out of his ground. So I think Sweet William, who ran perfectly well at York in a mess the other day, that was a muddling race. They were all in a heap. He should come on a bit for the run. The Gosdens are flying. Back Sweet William each way, back Trawlerman each way. 3 places. I mean, you've got them by the short and curlies, I think.
Yeah, it's probably a safe way to go back in those older horses. We'll know they'll show up and do it. And I suppose the trip for Illinois still has to be proven. But I was really interested by the French runner, to be honest. The Francis Henri Gaffard horse for the Aga Khan. It's only going to be his 6th career start. He only started running in December. Had a couple of, I think, 2 or 3 runs in the all weather, and then it was his 2nd start on the grass. He came out and won the Group 1. I'm not going to try and pronounce it now, but it's 2-mile Group 1 at Longchamp. I just thought the way he went away from doing it, like stepping up, I know it's an extra half a mile, but a horse came to him in the last 500 yards there, and he just pulled out a bit more and kicked on again. I suppose you'd be kind of backing on potential rather than what we know. I know you're both of you are kind of sticking with the solid older horses, but I think if I was going to back one of the young up and comers, I'd say I'd probably take a small chance on this horse. Small stakes, but I think he has loads of natural ability. It's interesting that they've put him into an assignment like this, only after 5 starts, and starting running it in December. So look, I think he's interesting. The French didn't have a bad year in Ascot last year, so I'll take a small chance on him on the big race on Thursday. We'll go on and just give a mention to anything else on the card. Stephen, I'll stick with you. Sure, what else caught your eye on Thursday?
Yeah, of course, we're not sure of the final fields yet. The one I've got on my list of just sort of horses who are sort of in the sort of tracker, things like that. In the 6:10, Gorak, I thought ran really well at Haydock first time out. Likes fast ground, finished second at Haydock, and then last time the reason you're getting a big price is ran at Chester. I think had trap 7 at Chester and ended up sort of 6 wide early on. You could ignore that run. He's handicapped to win. He's got Kieran Schumacher booked at Declaration. When we get to Declaration, he's been booked since the runners came out. I think he's number 35 on the list, so he should get in, I would have thought. There's lots of horses, multiple entered, so he could be a big price. I think he's about 33 to 1 with Boyles looking at that, so I think he'll go well.
Yeah, it's a bit harder, I suppose, to pick out something without declarations, these big runner fields. But Johnny, anything else catch your eye on the Thursday?
Yeah, Emma, the horse I'm most looking forward to is a serious contender. He is number 11 in the 305, the King George V Stakes handicap. Again, not entirely sure what runs in this. Even Aidan O'Brien obviously has Galveston and Roosevelt, Scandinavia in the race, but it just looks like serious contender is absolutely perfect for the race. Wooden Bassett, his sire, it's been a very interesting experiment, if you want to call it that, from Coolmore, that they put so much investment in him, and it really looks like it's paying off at the moment. And he's getting some very, very strong, robust horses, some with a lot of pace, some who stay well. This guy would be more in the latter category. He was backed into 9-4 favourite at Leopardstown for his handicap / seasonal debut earlier on in the season. He didn't look like he was going to run away with it, and I suppose he didn't run away with it, but he just looked like a horse that was going to improve for further. That was off 85. He's 7 pounds higher. But you imagine this has been the target since stepping up in trip. A horse who finds plenty for pressure, just like he gave me the impression of one that's going to keep on improving for Aidan O'Brien. I do like his chance, and he's going to be, as I say, we'll see what's running in the race on the day. But it's worth 13-2 is the shortest price, so I'd probably wait until declaration time. But he's I think he is well named a serious contender in that race.
Very good, very good. One I'm looking forward to, the 340, the Ribblesdale, Catalina Del Carpio. I think she's a really high class filly. She huge impression winning in Leopardstown on debut. Went to Navan then in Salzburg. We didn't get the clearest run of things, but like in hindsight, the filly that beat her that day ran a massive race in the Oaks next time. So I think it looks a nice spot for Catalina Del Carpio on her way to potentially an Irish Oaks. So she'd be one I'll be keeping an eye on Thursday as well. But we'll go on to Friday's racing. First Group 1 on the card on Friday, the Commonwealth Cup. That's at 3:05 p.m. I'll just get it up on my screen here. Obviously, no declarations for this one yet, but they're betting at the moment last year's champion 2-year-olds, Shadow of Light 7-4, Babouche for Ger Lyons, Judmont, and I'd imagine Colin Keane 4-1, Whistle Jacket, another very good 2-year-old, he's around 8-1, John Quill, another one from Judmont in there, around 7 or 8-1 mark as well. And Ide the March, the Ballydoyle second string, is 10s, and it's about 14s bar those. I would say this looks a cracker, Johnny. I'm hoping all the top 4 or 5 in the market are going to show up, because it'll be a right good contest if they do.
Definitely, I mean, yeah, it's not everyone's cup of tea, this race. It's obviously one of the young races on the festival, but I really like it. It's the 6 furlong Group 1, the first sort of 6 furlong Group 1 for the 3-year-olds of the season, and you get horses who, basically haven't stayed over a mile, or horses who are out and out speedsters who are kind of stepping up to 6 furlongs, and in the shape of the favourites here, and this is where it gets fascinating. Like, Shadow of Light looks a horse who, like, I think he stays pretty well. He did not quite see it out at Newmarket, but he's probably taken on 2 exceptionally good horses. And he's a horse now who they're going to see if they can turn him into a sort of a 6 furlong horse. But I feel he's probably short enough. He's taken on horses who will have lots of pace. It's going to be very, very hot at this stage of the week. So as much as they're watering it, like, it's hard to keep the ground anthem or rattling fast. And it's not common that you would get Whistle Jacket at this sort of price, and I'm not even sure he's going to necessarily compare or reverse the form from Nace with Babouche, who probably looked like she deserved to win the last day. But Whistle Jacket, he's a very, very solid horse. He was quite highly tried as a 2-year-old. They ran him a lot, but he does tend to give his running, and given the prices, he's nearly always sent off, and the fact that it looks like more or less he's trained on. I think he's.
Sorry, John, you actually froze there. We missed a good bit of that, I'd say.
Am I back now?
You're back now, yeah.
Sorry. Where did
Could
you
we?
lose me?
I think just when you were saying you weren't sure would he reverse the form of Babouche, you were talking
Oh,
about Whistlejacket.
yeah, I'm not sure. I suppose necessarily if Whistlejacket will definitely reverse form with Babouche from the last 8 and 8, but he was a very, very solid 2-year-old, quite highly tried, and it's just the prices he sent off. He's obviously very, very highly regarded. He's a good, strong horse who should. I don't think there's any evidence he hasn't trained on, and it's rare you get him at this sort of price. Just looking here, down at the bottom, Lady with the Lamp as well for Kevin Blake and Nick Lucan, the guys. Really looking forward to seeing how she gets on if she runs, but. Babouche is a good bit short than Whistlejacket. For all that she beat him at Naas, he was a good bit shorter on the day. And on overall form, I don't mind him at all at an each way price here. I do feel the favourite is a little bit vulnerable over what would be a very fast 6 furlongs.
Yeah, a couple of these dropping back in trip. John Quinn, another one, was second in the French Guineas, dropping back to 6 furlongs here as well. Stephen, what's your thoughts? It looks a hot little contest.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised at the market as well. I think they opened up around 3-1 Shadow of Light when they put the prices up last week, and he's been well backed allegedly, as far as we know, into 7-4 favouritism. Well, I didn't think he wanted. It wasn't stamina. I didn't think that beat him in the Guineas. So I am surprised he's dropping back 2 furlongs. It's always slightly alarming, isn't it, when you get a 2-year-old who's so good, he gets beaten first time out in the Guineas, and then immediately there's a complete sort of volte face, and they come back to wanting to run him over 6 against crack sprinters. I mean, it's a hot race. There's lots you can make a case for. The one I thought was overpriced, who is a sprinter, is Big Mojo from Mick Appleby's. He is number 5 on the card. He won first time out at a time when Mick was very quiet. He's since hit form. He only just fell in first time out, but he travelled typically strongly and just about saw things out. And then last time out at Haydock, I think it was in the Sandy Lane, wasn't it? He only finished 4th. He didn't see an awful lot of daylight. Things didn't quite pan out for him. But Ascot's much more his track. It's quite interesting. There'll be an almighty household row here, Emma, won't there? Because Holly Dawes actually jocks off Marquand on this. Marquand's riding some rag. He's probably got a ride for Haggis down the bottom. And Holly's got the ride for the first time on Big Mojo. So there'll be some ructions in the household there if that pans out as it might. But I really like Big Mojo. He likes fast ground. He's a strong traveller. I think 2 out, 14-1 could look a very big price. And he is a proper sprinter. And I agree with Johnny. Watching back that race, Babouche and Whistlejacket, I think it's one of those races where I'm would probably quite like to ride again. I'm not saying the best horse on the day didn't win, but I think positioning wise, Babouche got a much better ride than Whistlejacket got. And as Johnny said, one of them was, I think, 5-4 on, and one of them was 4-1. And all of a sudden, after that run, Babouche is half the price of Whistlejacket here. So I could see that angle backing Whistlejacket each way, and maybe Big Mojo each way as well. Perhaps if Boyles are offering extra places, that might be the way to go.
Yeah, I think the Whistlejacket each way angle is definitely interesting. 8-1, like Johnny said, you'd rarely get a price like that about him. You maybe like disappointed some people when he was he 4th in the Norfolk last year, sent on odds on favourite. I think he was one of the Ballydoyle bankers of the week, but like he was only beaten less than a length that day. He's gone on to prove he's really, really consistent, ground versatile. I don't think there's too many negatives about Whistlejacket. He's a real sprinter, and like you were saying, it's a couple of these in the top 4 or 5 in the betting that are dropping back from a mile, kind of maybe to avoid bigger rivals. So I think Whistlejacket 8-1 looks a good each way bet. An interesting one as well is She's So Spicy, supplemented for this after being purchased by Qatar Racing, coming over from the US. Oshie Murphy taking the ride. She's around 16-1. Look, she's stepping up in quality big time, but she hasn't done a whole pile wrong so far. I think she's won 4 of her 6 starts in the US. Travelling over, it's always interesting to see those US sprinters coming over as well. So I definitely maybe keep an eye out for her as well on the day. But we'll go on to the next Group 1 on the card. The second Group 1 on the Friday, the Coronation Stakes, obviously blown wide open with the deflection of Lake Victoria last week. So there's been a couple of supplements for this during the week. Falikea was supplemented along with Kontiki, and they're 2nd and 3rd in the betting behind French 1,000 guineas winner Zeringa, who's around 11-8. It's 3-1. Falikea, 4-1 Contiki, 11-2 exactly, who would have been the Ballydoyle second string, but looks like she'll be first here now. I suppose Zaringa caused plenty of controversy when she won the French Guineas, but I thought she was the right winner on the day, and I wouldn't be surprised to go on and to see her go on and prove she is a top class filly here. Johnny, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like I suppose the fact that we don't have Lake Victoria here is the real story of the race, but it does make it maybe a little bit more open in terms of the betting. Bedtime Story for me is a fascinating horse. It is if she turns up again. The way Aidan campaigned her as a 2-year-old, it's a 5-day turnaround from France. If she turns up, she's way overpriced here, 20-1, 33-1. It might be a doubt. She doesn't have any runners, other entries of Royal Ascot. But like she was sent off 16s twice as a 2-year-old. She was odds on in the Nagle. I was against her on the day based on prices, and she's probably become a shade disappointed given her pedigree and how much she was taught of early on. But if she rocks up here, and it wouldn't amaze me if she did, I'd give her a big chance. Of the others, I agree with you in relation to the French horse, Zarigana. I thought she deserved to win the race at the expense of She's Perfect at the last day, and she deserves to be favoured. But much to me hinges on what Aidan runs here, because obviously none of them is probably going to have the credentials of Lake Victoria. But I'd be very interested in Bedtime Story if she runs, and it wouldn't be amaze me if she did, even though it's 5 days away. Falikea is a really interesting horse. She's been well touted for a long time, and she's a fascinating runner as well. But I'd be really keeping an eye out on what Aidan runs here.
Stephen, what's your thoughts on the Coronation? Looks relatively open, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's possibly more open than the betting suggests. Although, as Johnny said, quite a few of them might not run looking at. I mean, the one thing to say about Zarigana, I think she's held in the highest regard. She started at 11-10, 4-5, 1-2, 1-2, and 4-5 in 5 career starts so far. The only thing to say is, well, 2 things. They've been on good to soft, 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 good to soft, and good last time out. And the good ground run, I know it was a messy race, but it was probably her least impressive performance. And the runner-up, eventual runner-up, obviously first past the post, She's Perfect, came out and beat the Ambulance home yesterday, but maybe didn't stay 1 mile 2 at the weekend in France. So maybe that's something that's nonsense to sort of say. But I mean, the form hasn't worked out immediately, and also very quick ground for Zarigana is an unknown. It's going to be completely different to what she's raced on so far. So at a short price, I suppose there are doubts. The second in, Johnny touched on, Falikea, looked extremely impressive, both at Wolverhampton and at Newmarket in May. Didn't really settle, but travelled all over them and sluiced up really by 3 1/4 lengths from Life is Beautiful, a horse of the Gosdens who hasn't run since, so the form's hard to assess. But I suppose if you're sort of a bookmaker, 5-4 and 3-1, the front two is something like 5-2 on coupled. I should think there's some better 5-2 on chances that will be running this week. So maybe looking for something like Bedtime Story or one of the outsiders. There's a clutch of 3-year-olds in this who could all improve. I'm not too sure the front two are absolutely bomb-proof.
No, probably not bomb-proof, but to be honest, I do expect Syringa to go on and win this. I don't think Michael Baird is going to probably cover himself in glory with that ride in the French Guineas. I'd say she got him out of trouble a little bit. I'm hoping he'll ride her a bit more prominently and don't not wait so long to make his challenge, and hopefully hangs on to his whip this time as well. So I'd expect her to go on and win this, to be honest. A couple of the ones that have been supplemented, look, they have potential, but it's a massive step up in grade. She's been there and done it at Group 1 company. Look, if Bedtime Story shows up, like Johnny said, she's definitely an interesting contender. Whether or not she will, I suppose we'll just have to wait and see.
Do you mind if I do mine again? I didn't realize that race was yesterday.
Oh yeah.
I might just. Sorry about this, Michael. I just might do that again, and everything that followed it is fine. I just might kind of caveat with, obviously, that's okay.
Yeah, work away.
So if you put this into my stretch, Michael, and it should work well.
Right, so that's the Group 1 on the Friday wrapped up. We'll go to the rest of the card for a look around. Obviously, no declarations and some big entries in some of the handicaps and other races. But Johnny, I'll go to you for Friday. Did anything else catch your eye?
Signora is one that's another Frankel horse in race 1 that I'm definitely interested in. Always intriguing to see horses who were beaten first time out going over to Royal Ascot to run in better races. But She's another very well-bred horse. She was very, very eye-catching, I thought. She ran first time out in a Group 3 behind Lady Imam, who at Naas is a very, very smart horse, and I thought she shaped really well given her lack of experience. The market would suggest she'd probably run. Again, you're sort of guessing at this stage. Boyle Sports 11-2. That's generally what price that she is, but the Albanese race I love watching every year. You get these really, really promising fillies who've been kind of prepped for it, and she's fascinating for me because she probably wouldn't need to improve a massive amount to get heavily involved.
Very good, Stephen. Anything else for you on the Friday?
I thought that in the 5 o'clock, that Betty Clover, number 2 on the card, is potentially a very interesting runner who I think will run because Eve Johnson-Houghton's booked William Buick for the ride, which she wouldn't make a habit of doing. And Betty Clover has run twice at Ascot and run 2 absolute blinds. A bore that I am, I dug out last year's Queen Mary, and Betty Clover only finished 8th in it, but was 4th on the wrong side of the track and ran an absolute blinder, and then came back to Ascot in July and finished 2nd behind Simmering, ran another screamer on fast ground at the track. So basically, there's nothing wrong with Ascot for Betty Clover. She's run three times this season, all at a time when Eve's horses were in the wilderness. They're now going well. And last time out in France, she ran an absolute screamer at the start of June in group company. So she's in slightly calmer waters here. I think she's bound to run well. This is her trip. This is her ground. Buick's booked. She's a very interesting runner.
Definitely. I'm going to go for a different one on the Friday. It's the 5:35, the King Edward Stakes Group 2 over the 1.5 miles. And it's number 17, Wimbledon Hawkeye. I think it's an interesting spot to put him in. He's been competing in some very, very good races, Group 1s, and maybe just finding one better. Like he was second to Field of Gold in the Craven. He's been behind Hot as Hell, the Lion in Winter, some good horses. He was third in the Dante as well, obviously. Stepping back into maybe this kind of level, there isn't maybe the level of horse who have been beating him in his last few assignments. I think it looks like a really good fit for him. I liked him as a 2-year-old. He's a good, tough, consistent kind of horse. He's stepping up and trip to the 1.5 miles for the first time. I don't think it'll be a huge worry for him. And, I think around 6-1, he wouldn't be a bad bet in that one at all. But we'll go on to Saturday. The last couple of races we'll give a mention to. And the first one we will chat about is the QE2 Jubilee Stakes 6 furlong sprint. And they're betting this one. Lazat, another recent Watnan Racing purchase coming over from France, is around 3-1 favourite. Inisherin 9-2. Storm Boy, the big Australian sprinter, didn't impress on stable debut in the Curragh, but they seem confident they can get him back here for Ascot. He's around 5-1. And 6-1 bar those. Stephen, I'll stick with you first. I suppose the Watnan purchase is interesting. Inisherin was very good winning last time, and Storm Boy, look, you couldn't totally rule him out either. So it's a tricky little contest.
Yeah, it's very, very hard race to assess, Emma, isn't it? And a lot of horses are entered up in other races in the week. That doesn't apply to Lazat, I don't think, who is going to run in this race, I believe. They went back to sprinting at Chantilly at the start of May, and it really suited. Making all the running, really brisk pace and finding plenty to win a good little race there. I mean, the only negative I can find really is fast ground. Again, you often say this about the French. It doesn't mean they won't go on it, but basically, Lazat's whole career has been spent on the very soft, heavy, good to soft, good a few times, which tended to coincide with slightly lesser effort. So whether rattling quick ground at a pretty quick 6 furlongs is what Lazat needs is another matter. I thought Storm Boy was disappointing without obvious excuses, but there has been some money around for him in the anti-post market, such as it is. So maybe that's significant. But I've got very little opinion on the race. This looks a real minefield, this one.
Yeah, it does look tricky. I'd be kind of with you there. Like Storm Boy, it's hard to make a strong case for him, I suppose, only just on vibes you might be getting from quotes. From stable tours and things like that, but hard to fancy him off that Curragh. And Lazat, he Morris the Geese winner last year, winner of a listed race in Chantilly last time. The form of that was boosted. I think the 5th that day, James's Delight came out and won the Greenland Stakes at the Curragh next time. So that looks like a reasonably strong form. Like you said, there is maybe a few ground concerns, but Watnam purchased him again. I heard James Doyle speaking about him during the week, and he said he was one of the ones he was most looking forward to riding out of a strong team for Watnam. So he's probably deserved favourite, but it is a tricky race. Johnny, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this race, I think you touched on it there, Emma. This very much hinges on what Coolmore and Ballydoyle have in the shape of Stormboy. He was a really interesting recruit, and I couldn't get over his price at the Curragh for a 4-year-old. He's actually listed in the Racing Post as a 3-year-old still. He's a 4-year-old. He's if you're on the Racing Post site, that's definitely something to consider. Because that threw me at the Curragh when I thought he was a 3-year-old sprinter. I couldn't get over the price he was. He was disappointing. But you did get the sign afterwards from Maiden. Maybe he was putting a bit of a gloss on it, but they weren't overly disappointed. Maybe he'll be okay, and everything will work out for them. But without, I'm a bit like Steve, I wouldn't have a strong view in the race, but Inisherin is rock solid. I just love horses who come to this meeting. You know exactly what the ground is going to be like. It's going to be similar to last year. He was brilliant in the Commonwealth Cup. He's trained on. He seems to be just as well as he was since he's wind up. And he's a very, very solid contender. He should be thereabouts anyway, but I'm fascinated to see what the market will make of the Ballydoyle runner.
Sure, I don't think any of us have a massively strong opinion on Saturday's Group 1 yet. I suppose a long way out, and it looks a tricky contest, like those sprints can tend to be. But we'll wrap it up there. We've gone through plenty across the week at Ascot so far. And before we go, I'll ask you both for maybe your nap across the full week. Stephen, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think mine's on the Wednesday, the 4:20. I really like the French horse Map of Stars. I think he's overpriced at sort of 9-2, 4-1. I think he should be favourite. I think if you beat one of the front two, you'll beat both of them. And I think he's a faster horse and will do them for pace, hopefully, under James Doyle.
Very good. Johnny, your nap of the week?
It's actually ruling court in day one, James Palace at the prices. I just feel he's well overpriced relative to a very, very good Guineas runner-up. But remember, he did finish runner-up in the Guineas Field of Gold. I'm not sure that the Curragh showed him to be any better than he was at Newmarket. And I disagree with the narrative that he definitely would have won on the day. So ruling court at 3s for me is a very good bet.
Yeah, I was between himself and Rosalian on the first day. It's kind of hard to go beyond the first 2 days for the nap and we don't have declarations. But you've gone rolling court, so I'll go Rosalian in the 2:30 Queen Anne Stakes. I think he's a deserved favourite, 5-2. I think he's going to improve an awful lot for that Lock-in run. He's brilliant at Ascot. He was brilliant winning at the Royal Ascot last year. I'd expect him to step forward plenty and get his career back on track, I suppose, after missing a significant chunk of last season. But we'll wrap it up there, guys. Thanks very much for all your input. Hopefully we have found all our viewers a few winners across the week at Ascot. If you like the content, make sure to like and subscribe, because myself and Johnny will definitely be back next Monday anyway to review, I suppose, everything that happened in this week's action. And I'm sure we'll be back with Stephen soon again with another episode of Form Scan. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the content, and make sure and like and subscribe.